Hi, I am Mandy Rice, and I want to thank you so much for stopping by and seeing what I have to offer in helping you flip your classroom. So today we're going to focus on the question of, is the flipped classroom right for me? And I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself in order to answer this question. And this could be a good guidance for you, really, as you think about, is this flipped classroom thing just going to be too much? Or is it even really going to be worth it? Or is it just like packaged in this whole, it's a silver bullet and going to solve everything like everything else in education is? The answer to that is no. The flipped classroom is totally not the silver bullet to solve all problems. But I think it could help in many aspects, and that's what we'll talk about today. But I also think this resource could be good in guiding conversations in your department, or maybe with some of your colleagues, or even administration, and helping them see, hey, I've been thinking about this for a while, and here's why. So I hope that it guides good conversations, whether it's between you and you, or you and colleagues or administration. So let's go ahead and get started. The first category of questions that you're going to want to ask revolve around your classroom. And I don't mean like the physically existing, although kind of. I just mean your environment where you are teaching, right? And your students. So the first question is, do my students have access to a device, either at home or in my classroom or in the school on a regular basis? And really, what degree of that access do they have? And this includes phones. In a bring your own device environment, it could include phones. Every year, here's another kind of question or statement, I feel like I have so much content to get through and I never quite get through it all. You may have seen that I teach AP Psychology and I flipped that classroom. I also teach American History and have flipped certain lessons of that classroom. And this is really one of the top reasons why I flipped. It was because it just felt like there was so much and I never felt like I was getting through it all. Another one is I have so many fun and engaging activities or projects. For instance, you want to do Socratic seminars or passion projects or that 20% time I want to do, but never enough time to do them because I feel like I'll be sacrificing time to cover content and prepare for the test. And I just can't do that. And you know what? That's a legitimate concern. It really is. And I bet you are not the only one who feels like this, because I felt like that. I totally did. My second year of teaching, I thought, wow, there's so many great things that we could be doing, but we can't because of this test or because of this big assessment that's coming that's really important to them, whether it's for graduation or an AP test or whatever that looks like. I'm not kind of like totally bashing testing, but we do sacrifice a lot for it, and maybe we need to reevaluate that. And then lastly, if I do any extension or extra activities outside of preparing tested content, I feel like I'm sacrificing rigor, right? So I can't sacrifice rigor. I don't believe in it. I want to make sure that my class is rigorous. But if I do anything other than, let's say, lecture or speak very directly to the content, then am I really helping prepare my students? So something to consider. So moving right along next to the next category, let's talk about your students and some questions you can ask there. My students rely too heavily on me as the beholder of all knowledge. I remember saying to my students in the first few years as I was flipping and kind of building that culture around the flipped learning environment and saying, you know what? I am not the beholder of all knowledge. So why are you getting snarky in some cases, right? If I don't tell you this answer right away. And I think this has a lot to do with something else that I should totally add to this list. So pause for a second and come back to me if you were kind of distracted and listening. That the flipped classroom, or maybe this is a pain point that you have in your classroom, is you feel like it's pulling teeth to get your kids to think, to get your students to think, to really learn, and that you don't want to just hand them the answers, right? You want them to explore and discover and find them for themselves, because then it's more meaningful. The flipped classroom doesn't automatically make that shift for you, but it's a really crucial step, I believe, at least in my experience, to making sure that I'm directly instructing my students and really hitting them where they need it, if that makes sense, of really giving them what they want, and that your students do want to hear from you. You are the expert that's been given to them. But at the same time, I want to push them. I want to challenge them to think. And the flipped classroom is what did that for me. My students are so focused on the quote game of school and getting the grade when I want them focused on understanding. I want them focused on thinking and the process of learning, and that sometimes it gets messy. And you know what? You can be wrong in this room, and that's okay. You can make mistakes. The flipped classroom is really what allowed me to make that shift in the culture of my classroom. Another one, my students see our activities as currency for the grade, meaning they only do the work I put in front of them if I grade it. So they're only going to do this if I grade it. Whoa, that's a big one. Really, we could have a whole other like YouTube channel or video on just that one. But again, it's speaking to, yes, your students, that's why I put it in this category, but the culture of your classroom. Really, all of these do, right? And that the teacher is not necessarily the holder of all knowledge. Even though I'm gonna speak into what you want to hear and what you need from me about this class, but I'm also gonna challenge you to think and to learn. And then also that part of that culture of your classroom, and that we're not just here to play the game of school. We are here to think and to learn. And you know what? I'm not gonna give you a grade as if I'm paying you like your boss. I'm telling you that what I'm putting in front of you as the teacher and as your guide in this content, that this is important. Whether I put a grade on it or not is null and void. It's going to help you to understand, and that's the currency of your classroom. My student depth and or breadth of knowledge is not really where I want it to be. And that kind of hits back to the classroom one. And is my classroom as rigorous as I want it to be? Now, I'm going to pause here for a second and talk about the me, which is you as the teacher, right? Who'da thunk? We need to think about and really spend some time on the teacher and what is best for them. And that not always is what's best for students, best for teachers. Not always what's best for teachers is best for students. But finding a good balance is really where it's at. And you'll hear me say this over and over again. Teachers, research over research has shown that the biggest change agent in a child's life in regards to school and the system that we've built here in America for students to learn is you. So that's why we have an entire category. It's for you. It's for the teacher, and that you've got to be able to show up for your students every single day. And so you've got to put some structures and processes and techniques and best practices in place that are about you, right? That save you from spending evenings and hours and weekends away from your kids, away from your husband or wife or your family or your dog, whoever. Because you need those things, right? You need that balance. So take back that evening, take back those afternoons, those weekends. And that's why I have this here, right? So I'm kind of rambling now, but the teacher, of course we should consider you. And so I go on a little bit longer on this one. I am tired of being the sage on the stage, or I'm lecturing or at the front of the classroom more than I really would like to be, right? I went to college. I had all these classes on super great things to do and student-centered and blah, blah, blah. And then I get this boatload of content, and the only way to get through it is for me to stand at the front of the room and tell them about it. Not that that's bad, but it's probably not great or the best experience if that's all you're doing. And you know what? I would like for our daily procedures and our activities to be more student-centered, right? It's like that book. And here, I'll grab it for you because I have it totally right here. A great book I would totally recommend. Never Work Harder Than Your Students. And Other Principles of Great Teaching. Now, obviously, you're going to work hard. And a lot of times you're going to work harder than your students for your class. Of course you should. And maybe explain that to kids when they ask you, what do you mean you're never going to work harder than me? Just kidding. But in the classroom, when you have them for 45, 55, 60, or 90 minutes, whatever your bell structure looks like, their brains are going to be thinking about this information more than yours because you are going to be thinking about them. And letting them know that I am here to think about you and what's best for you to understand these objectives and laying that out. So here's what you're thinking about while I'm thinking about you and how you're acquiring that knowledge. Another box that you could check or question to ask. I find myself frequently exhausted at the end of the day or on Friday evening and not having the energy I need to maintain the pace of my classroom. Or, this is my third time doing this today and I can't do it again. And of course, it's what we do, right? It's what we do as teachers. You're going to feel like that. And you're going to feel like that a lot. But to feel like that every day, year round, is not healthy. That's not what's going to allow you to make it through your career for 30 plus 35 years. Another one, the continual planning is getting me down. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good planning sesh, but planning every single minute detail on a daily basis is really getting to me. I hear that a lot from teachers. I heard that from myself a lot. And I think this is probably something that newer teachers are saying. And it takes years of just experience and just doing it, right? Before you really feel confident and comfortable enough to not plan every minute. And that comes with time. But the flipped classroom definitely plays a role there. I don't feel confident in the curricular structure that I have in my classroom. I feel as though something is lacking. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I know that the foundation of my classroom could be serving me and my students more. So maybe you're at a point where you're like, I really don't know what I'm necessarily looking for, but I know I've got these pain points and I know I'm missing something. There's got to be something structurally that can happen or that I can implement in my room to make everything else kind of fall into place. And then here's a big one. Maybe the biggest. It just depends on what perspective you're coming from. I need me as the teacher. I need a regular, sustainable, not too much to ask for break. Right? I used to blank. Now fill in that blank with an activity you used to do for you. And now you can't because of #teacher guilt, because you're maintaining all that is listed in this entire checklist, right, of your job and of your life. For me, personally, that blank was that I used to go out with friends. I used to date my husband, and once I had kids, it was this continual feeling that I was underperforming as their mom because I was working so much in order to perform well for my students. And I'm here to tell you that the flipped classroom will not solve this problem. No, there is no silver bullet in education. There is no one thing you can do to solve any one problem in what you do as a teacher or in education. But what I have seen in my experience, in my 8+ years of flipping, my 10 years of teaching, is that what did it for me, what allowed me to slowly start having more balance, was flipping my classroom and was exploring different ways of instructing my students so that I could both focus on them and their learning rather than focusing on just the content and the drill and kill. And you know what? Side benefit, it totally allowed me to be with myself, with my husband, with my kids a little more often. Maybe not as much as not working or not being a teacher, but it was something, it was tangible, and I was really proud of that. So you can find this checklist at my website at teachonamission.com. You should totally go there and download that. And I hope that you find it helpful. I would love it if you could print that out and start having conversations, whether it's with the team of teachers you teach with or people in your department or even your administration, to start getting those conversations going on is this good for me? Well, I haven't considered it yet, and hopefully that checklist will help guide you through those conversations. So everybody have a great day. I hope that you are finding your mission in teaching, and that maybe, just maybe, I can help you in finding it as well. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.